Hi, Florencia. Thank you very much for being here today. First of all, how are you?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited.
Pleasure. Right, so let's get straight into it then, because I'm not sure which part I'm going to release this in, but it's definitely a part in a mini series that I'm doing on F1 Motorsport in South America. And first question I want to ask you, which I ask everyone, is what first got you into motorsport? Because being South America, it's not the mainstay for Formula One and motorsport that it is in other areas of the world, but it used to be quite involved with it all. So I'm intrigued.
Well, that's true. Formula One has been in Argentina for a while, but it's not something that we actually get to do very like in our everyday life. I got into motorsports when I was a kid because my dad he used to watch the national races here in Argentina. And then we got into Formula One. We used to watch like different series in different time zones that were here in Argentina on Sundays. So Sundays were a day in the week that I actually really looked forward to. But nothing like really excited me as much as a kid as Formula One. Like I was looking to watch that race on Sunday. I
What
was
was it about
as a
Formula
kid.
One?
I think the cars were different. There are the tourism cars that are the most common thing here in Argentina. But seeing the cars that are red, I mean yellow with Renault, I don't know, Alonso. I feel like they had an atmosphere that you couldn't actually see in the cars that were from
Mm,
here from Argentina because they're like normal cars just prepared for racing. Formula One instead is a specific racing series that you don't see on the streets. That's what I mean. So yeah, it was something that I really liked. He was a really big fan of Ayrton Senna back then. So he was always telling me and explaining me things. He knows a lot about mechanic things, and I really liked knowing about cars, knowing what was going on. And then when I grew up, I started watching every single race in the calendar. I think back in 2019, and then it was the time I decided I wanted to like say, okay, I want to work in this place. I want to be like that journalist that I'm looking right now on TV. I want to do that job. I feel like it's amazing. You get to travel to every race. You get to talk with drivers. I don't know. I feel like it's something that is a dream. And of course, I knew it wasn't gonna be easy because being here in Argentina, I always felt like it was harder for me to get into Formula One than it was for English people, for example, or American
definitely.
people. They have the chance to travel and they have the chance to watch a race in their own country, which I couldn't. So it was something that I knew it was going to be hard, but still I didn't want to like lose that opportunity at, I don't know, 18, 19 years old of studying sport journalism because I thought it was something that in general, I like sports. I like
Mm.
any kind of sports. So I thought, okay, let's do this. Let's study this career and see how it goes, right? I wasn't sure that I was going to get there, but I was definitely willing to try.
And from what we talked about before, off camera, like you're saying, it was difficult, but it was straightforward in some respects as well, because you knew that this was not be an easy challenge to get to where you want to go there, but it kind of encouraged you to shoot your shot essentially and just go for the long shot and just see what would happen, because that's essentially how you came into what you're doing now. And obviously the motorsport journalism, studying all of that, definitely helped and bolstered that. And as you say, you love a lot of other sport as well, so that really complemented it. But tell us about how you just decided, because you're not going to have the opportunity as easy as potentially those in Europe and America would for this, that what made you thought, let's try this and see what happens?
Well, I thought about first of the opportunity of traveling. I mean, I always thought about doing my career here in Argentina because we have a free education that you don't get in other countries. So I wanted to take advantage of that, and I know it is a good education as well. So I wanted to stay here to give my friends, my family until I was like, I don't know, 22, 23, and get the money in those years and got to actually get to the UK. Mainly, my first like idea was going to the UK, learning English. And I'm gonna be honest, I never thought that I could have an opportunity in Formula One in my country. I know the broadcasting stuff for all Latin American continent is made from Argentina, um, Colombia, Peru, Bolivia. None of those countries have their own broadcasting for Formula One. It is made from Argentina in Spanish to all Latin American, I think, continents, except for Mexico. I think that they have their own
Probably
broadcasting
because of
team.
Perez.
Yeah, exactly. They have a very big like Formula One industry because they have their own driver, their own race, everything. But I never thought that I could actually get to work from Argentina in Formula One. I know the usual journalists you see on TV don't get there as easily as you get to work in, I don't know, other job. So I never saw that as a chance for me. So I was always thinking of traveling, and I always use a lot of LinkedIn. LinkedIn helped me a lot to actually, well, I got my first opportunity to write about Formula One with Esteban Gutierrez that founded a blog in Mexico, and he wanted, and his team wanted a Spanish writer. So they contacted me because of my Instagram account. That whole networking thing really helped me through the way. But yeah, I think it was easier than I expected because that opportunity, for example, to write got me when I was just in my first year in university. So it was like, oh my God, I'm already doing what I want. And I'm just in my first year. I was like, I think 19 back then. I'm still writing for the blog. It's something I really like to do. Usually journalists start writing and then they get to do broadcasting or something else. So it was like a really huge step for me. But yeah, I don't think it was as difficult as I thought, thankfully, because it's not common for people from this country to actually get opportunities in industries that are very, very big, you know, and usually are based in other countries, as you said, that is UK.
And I thought that's taken on kind of an aggressive expansion in itself with you now because you wrote for the newsletter, you got noticed, you clearly worked hard and you studied hard, and then you got the opportunity with the Argentinian TV now, is if I'm remembering correctly there. And tell us about how you got involved there with it. So if I'm remembering correctly, it was kind of reaching out to one of the presenters, not really expecting a reply, and then them replying to you. And you're like, oh, that worked.
Yeah, exactly. It was exactly like that. I was a really big fan of the Fox Sports program that is called Telemétrico here, where they analyze the telemetry of the cars. And that journalist, which is called Adrian Puente, was so good. He always has all the data, all the analysis. I got to learn a lot more, even if I watch Formula One for a very long time. He always is giving you new information. So I was a huge fan of that program. And one day I followed him for a very long time in social media. And one day I told him, well, I know you're like, I didn't say that. I thought he's lonely in his program because he didn't have like a whole team. Usually you see two, three, four
Yeah.
journalists, and in his program it was only he. So I commented on an Instagram post. You need a female voice. You need like an extra journalist, especially a woman, obviously, in your program. And I just he gets thousands of comments. Like people are really big fan of him. I never expected him to reply, but he did. Actually, his manager contacted me and said, "Okay, here's my number. Please leave me a message. I want to have a meeting with you. Adrian wants to meet you." And I was like, no, this is incredible. From the very first minute, I got really excited, and my dad was like, okay, keep calm, because you don't know if this is going to happen. I mean, he's really nice, he wants to give you the opportunity, but it's obviously not just about him, it's about a channel which is Fox Sports. I mean, it's a huge thing that has to actually give you the chance. It's not just him. So uh, I couldn't just keep it to myself. I was like talking about it all the time. And yeah, I got to meet him. I got to meet the Fox Sports channel too. And thankfully, everything went very, very well. It wasn't like really easy because they weren't sure about putting a woman so young in
And
front
so
of the
fresh as
TV.
well.
And yeah, they were like very like undecisive, about doing this, because they rather had a journalist with years of experience. To the transmissions, to the broadcasting, it is also been, um, they also put another journalist, that is Andres Ausha, which, well, he used to do the broadcasting of IndyCar. So he had like 30 years of experience, and they knew they had to build a team with someone maybe that is new. They actually said yes to that, thank God. But they also put someone else that actually really knows about what he's talking, because he knows about IndyCar. They are very similar series, and he knows about racing, what racing is about.
It looks better on
So
paper for
the
them as
team,
well to say that you've got two experienced people and a new person to learn from these two. It's not 50-50. There's a bit more of a hierarchy there. In theory, it's first to make them feel better. And I think you're just still pinching yourself at that point that I'm just happy to be here and getting to do this. So if this is how it works, then fine.
yeah, exactly. Well, they did that. They wanted to, okay, let's just put someone that doesn't really have the experience, and let's put someone that really has the experience to just like have a really nice team built. And yeah, from the very first moment, Adrian knew that he wanted someone to actually educate, like that doesn't have the mind like set up in a certain way, or that hasn't done anything in the last couple of years, so he could actually educate that person and get to do the work the way he wanted to, which is also very good, because I'm learning the way he does things. And yeah, that was really, really great. It was like one day to another, it was just the comments, then they had the interviews with me, and then they say, okay, we're going to hire you. At first they just wanted me for the practices on Friday, and that same weekend Adrian said, no, I want you for all the weekend, I want you for the qualifying, I want you for the Grand Prix, I
You
want
must
you
have
to
made
be
a good
here.
impression.
Yeah, and he wanted me to actually listen to the radios of the drivers that are not just on the TV, but also
Hmm.
on the app, F1
Yeah,
TV.
yeah.
You got the all the radios there, and said, okay, if you listen something that's important, like a driver, I don't know, has a puncture or something, just let me know. And yeah, that is basically my job. I started with that. Then I started with my own comments, like my own
Yeah.
opinions. And then he also put me on the program, on the pre-race and the post-race of Telemetrico, which was like everything to me, because they were like very happy with the work I was doing. So yeah, for me it was an amazing thing.
And how long have you been doing that now?
Now I think it's been like 2 months or 3 months. I started back in Azerbaijan. I think it was my first race, so you
It's all
can
been pretty
count
quick
from
this
there.
year then. Okay, right. I wasn't
Yeah.
sure if it was going to be like a season long thing already and this was like your second year, but you're still pretty new to the whole game. But it's going really well. Because I mean, like you say, that confidence that he had in you from practice to get that kind of promotion, and like you say, this whole domino effect has really been very quick.
Yeah, when they said, okay, we're going to do this, I didn't know if it was for one race, for two races, if they're going to say, okay, just better you go home. I don't know. I mean, it's something that is not really up to me. And I think from the very first races, Adrian was like, well, welcome. I want to welcome Florencia, that is going to be with us all season long. He was like super excited. He wanted me there. Yeah, I was super lucky to actually meet him, and him liking me, because it was like a first thing, a bonding that we had, and I think that's something people see on the broadcasting. Like we can joke together. I feel like the broadcasting is very funny with Andres. He's also a very, very nice journalist that
That's the
knows
kind
how
of
to give
dynamic
the
you want, though. I
information.
feel like you want to have the serious knowledge that you can apply throughout the whole race weekend, but you want to be able to have fun with it as well. You don't want to be so serious all the time and just kind of being a robot about it. You need to have that chemistry between the three of you to like tell that passion about Formula One.
Yeah, exactly. Not just about saying the data and everything. Yes, you
And
gotta
anyone
give
can do that. You
people
need that
that
extra bit of
important
some
stuff.
that personality.
Yeah, but entertainment is always the most important thing. Sometimes in practices, for example, you don't have like every day, every time an action thing going. So you gotta like talk about something else. But let's talk about what Lando said about, I don't know, a certain thing. Or let's talk about Daniel Ricciardo and some stuff he's talking with Red Bull. It is always like really nice to keep that conversation going. And what Adrian told me when he first got me into the broadcasting was, I don't just want a woman, which is also really nice, or a man. I want someone who knows about Formula One. I mean, that's the most important thing. I don't want to put someone that is really young and is pretty, or because
No,
that's it. I
you don't
want to
want to just
put
tick a
someone.
box. You want them to be an expert in what they're doing, or at least learn to be an expert in what they're doing.
Exactly, because I had the knowledge in Formula One, but maybe not the knowledge or the experience in what journalism is, or communicating that knowledge. I mean, it's not the same thing. You can know a lot about something, but you have to learn how to communicate that to people, to the audience. And actually, it went even better than I expected. I always get really nice comments from people saying, "Oh, you're super young, you're super good. I really like hearing a female voice because it's really, I mean, and in Argentina and in the Latin American continent, we don't hear a female voice speaking on the broadcasting. It's not common. I mean, we have the female journalist working on the paddock, interviewing drivers, but when it comes to the race, when it comes to broadcasting, qualifying, and everything, you don't hear them. They are like in the background, or maybe doing the post race, the pre race, but not on the broadcasting, which I feel like is the most important thing. So it was like something that I was really getting into, and I didn't have a female role model to look at. Like, yes, as I said, when they are in the background of the races, it really helps to look at them, but not when it comes
But you
to
have to
actually
look
make
for them
comments.
specifically. They're not obviously there in front of you to see.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think in the W series, I got to hear a woman for the first time on the broadcasting, which was here in Argentina. It was a female driver from one of the tourism categories that I talked to you earlier about. That was like the only time I could hear someone, and she wasn't even a journalist. She was a driver, which is amazing, but it wasn't like something
It
I was
shows that
doing or
gap that
something I
is
knew
there,
about.
that they need to get a driver in because there's no one readily
Exactly.
available for it. It's interesting because then, like you say, you started like really getting into Formula One back in 2019, like where you were saying, I want to be involved in this, I want to do something with this, and it's evolved from there. Both personally and professionally, I appreciate the professionally may not be as much because you're still like within the first few months of it. But how have you seen F1 and Motorsport evolve in Argentina and then just more widely in South America so far? Because like you said earlier, Mexico, it's interesting. They've got their own whole setup there, but then for the rest of the continent, it's pretty much just Argentina does it, you will get it, and everyone else is kind of left to do their own thing. And you see some people here and there in certain countries, like for example, La Chica de la F1 in Colombia, she's got a great big following there. But then if you've got to really go looking for some people otherwise, and you've kind of spotted this gap and like, wouldn't it be cool if this happened and you got lucky in the sense that the guy that you were commenting to paid attention, like, she's got a point. But I'm interested in what you maybe think about all of that and that driving force. Like you say, W Series had a little bit of a hand in it, maybe, because it's interesting hearing about that now after what's happened with it. But it wormed its way into Argentina, which it was a global series, but you're not expecting it to maybe make these little impacts in certain areas of the world that it clearly has here.
Well, I feel like it kind of Formula One evolved in certain ways, but it, like unevolved. I don't know how the word is, or it went backwards. Let's say in other aspects. I feel like it evolved in South America since we had a very massive growth of the audience when the Drive to Survive series came out in Netflix. I feel like people got to actually know what Formula One is because I mean, we have a generation like my father's that knows what Formula One is because they used to watch it. We used to have a Grand Prix here in Argentina until 1998 when Michael Schumacher won, and that was the last thing the last Grand Prix we had here in Argentina, and probably one of the last things we actually heard about Formula One because then the broadcasting wasn't the same thing. Some people, I mean, the media didn't want to buy the rights to broadcast the races, so it wasn't easy. And the people that, like my generation, that came after the Grand Prix from Argentina retired, uh, unless they have a father like mine that was a very big fan of Formula One races, they didn't have something to watch on the TV. Back at the time, we could watch the races in like the common TV. The I don't you didn't have to pay. That's what I mean.
Yeah,
So
free to
it was massive. Exactly. So people, anyone could really just turn on the TV and watch it, which was amazing. And then they kind of stopped doing that. The races went after the races happened. So let's say the race was at 11 Argentinian time. They put the race at 6 Argentinian time PM. So they didn't even put the races live, and people weren't really excited because they already saw on the news that Michael Schumacher won. So it didn't really matter. They stopped giving Formula One the attention they were giving back then, and so I feel like my generation just watched other things like football, basket, I don't know, other sports, and it got lost. And same thing with drivers. I feel like Mexico has a driver in Formula One, and that is one of the reasons why they have a Grand Prix. They have like this audience that people actually can attend the Grand Prix. That's amazing because we know going to Grand Prix isn't is very expensive, isn't cheap at all. So I feel like having a driver really helps. And yeah, in Argentina we don't have Formula One as a priority. I mean, we don't have the economy, we don't have the resources to actually bring the Grand Prix. We know Formula One is a huge category, and we can just I mean the circuits remain very important, and they must have a certain degree. I think it's one
Probably
degree,
grade
the
one
best
category,
circuit. To 5, I think, is the worst kind of degree. Well, our circuit right now in which Formula One used to race is a 5 degree now because it's very like it's very poor everything around it.
And say you've not been there
The
since 1998, so it's just not been looked after because there's been no need for it to be used.
Yeah, I mean it is used, but for categories that are very like
not on the same
low
level.
in terms of yeah. I mean there's karting, which is very expensive here in Argentina to do, and the categories which are with other type of cars. Formula One are very have a very big technology on them, and they require certain stuff that other kind of cars like the cars we watch in the street don't need. So of course, it was. I feel like it evolved in terms of how the audience grew with the series of Netflix, with some of the documentaries that Netflix put out. There was a document about Juan Fangio too, which is also very interesting, and yeah, lots of people watch it here in Argentina. but then it kind of like unevolved in other ways, as such as what I was telling you, that this circuit is not being looked after, and that really puts us in a place in which we cannot have Grand Prix right now. That is really sad in a way, because I feel like we have the resources, we have the country to do so. We are a very country with lots of people, and which a lot of people are very big fans of Formula One. And we have a very racing, it's football and racing, the two most important things here in Argentina. So I feel like if we have football and we won the championship and everything, we should have Formula One as well, to the other 50% of people that instead of football likes racing. But yeah, we have Interlagos, the most close circuit right now, and well, Mexico, that is I feel like a very important thing that we remain having a Latin American driver, even if it's Mexican. I feel like the thing of it being in Spanish, like and everything. We have Alonso and Carlos Sainz too, but they are European, so it's a different thing. So Checo being there, I feel like it's a really important thing. And when it comes to Checo not being in Formula One anymore, I feel like it will come like the end of an era, because we don't have any Latin American driver coming close to Formula One right
I
now.
was, I was
So
going to say you've got a couple of people in the junior categories, which if they can do well, then there's potential for it. Sebastian Montoya is the first name I'm thinking of. There is in Formula 3 at the moment, and I'm curious. I want to pick up on a couple of things you said, because obviously having a driver from Argentina, or at least somewhere in South America, would be a big help, I think, in revitalizing F1 and getting that notice again. But do you think that having the races live, just as something as simple as that, would be just a massive help to re-establishing everything there? Like you say, you've got all of the tools for it. Essentially, it's just a matter of that extra last bit, and it would be very interesting to see what kind of an impact that would have, especially because, as you say, it's been a steady drop off in attention since the last Grand Prix to happen there. You do kind of have this carte blanche approach where you can do whatever you want, and you have been doing whatever you want, in a sense of we can afford to try these things because the audience is not of such a humongous size yet that we're going to get criticized if we make a mistake that could be costly, so we can try a few things out there. Do you think that the broadcasting side of things, and to show and maybe have yourself as a role model for other women, just to have that there, would be a very big small step, if that makes sense, to getting things back on track there?
yeah, totally. I totally agree with that, because, well, actually, I feel like I don't know if the first five were some races were actually not put live. I don't know. In Spanish, it's diferido, like after the race, but I don't know how to say
Yeah,
it
it's kind of
in English.
highlights, I
But it wasn't
suppose.
live. Yeah, exactly. So it was like, I don't know, the race was at 8 and the race was super late, and you had to watch it afterwards, at least on Fox Sports. But that was because the channel had the rights to broadcast the races, 18 of the 23 races.
Mm-hmm.
So what Fox tried to do was, okay, let's just do the first 5 races like that, and then the rest of the year we need to put everything live. Like, that's not on a discussion, especially because Fox is very accessible to people because it's free. You can get Fox like very easily. It's very you don't have to pay extra stuff.
As it
And
should be.
yeah, and ESPN, when the broadcasting divided, because Disney brought ESPN, and it was like you have to pay Star Plus, so all of the people, we broadcast in Fox Sports only for Argentina, but if you are from Colombia, for example, you need to pay Star Plus or F1 TV, which is the same transmission with the same broadcasting, because otherwise you can't watch the races. So I feel like this is the first year that even though we didn't have 5 races live, we have the rest of the calendar from now on, from Silverstone on. We have all of the races live. That is super exciting, and I feel like it's a very huge step towards people actually watching the races, because people even comment on my social media and they thank me. It's not me who is broadcasting the races, but of course they look at me and they say thank you, Florencia, for being alive, and for Fox Sports to do this, because it's really important for me. Like people say, for me it's really
So
important, because
you're
I can
part of
have
it, and you're part of moving it in the right direction.
yeah, exactly. There is, Argentina doesn't have the best economy in the world, so people are really struggling, and they can't afford to pay an extra channel just to watch Formula One races, and it's an expensive thing. That's the truth. So they are very excited that Fox is from now on putting all of the races live, and I feel like yes, it is a very massive step in terms of making Formula One visible for everyone, and for it to grow in our country. And even some people get to see Colapinto, in Formula 3, you were talking about
Yes.
Montoya, and they wake up like at 5 a.m. because we have like reasonable time zones for Formula 1, but Formula 3, it is very early, like it's
It's
5
bad
in the
enough
morning.
when it's in Europe, never mind if you're somewhere else. So
No, it's terrible. And people wake up to see him because he's Argentina. Well, last weekend he won the sprint.
Mhm.
And people were like, to hear our anthem on the podium was like, oh my God, this is amazing. We haven't heard that in a very, very long time. And it's a series that is very close to Formula One.
Yeah,
So people are really supporting him. We know it's not just being good and having talent. We know it's about having the sponsors. We know it's much more than that. So Formula One is not as close as we think maybe it is for people that really don't know and think Formula 3, oh, Formula 3, Formula 2, and Formula 1, that's it. Well,
in
when you
theory.
get to Formula 1, yeah, it's very hard. We know about Oscar Piastri that won Formula 2 in his first year being a rookie, and the next year he didn't have a seat in Formula 1. He had to wait 1 year and then go to McLaren, thank God, because he really deserved that seat. But it's not easy. And there are some drivers that are even paid to be there. Like they put the money and they're there. So it's a very big competition between drivers, the money, the sponsors, which it shouldn't be like that, but it's understandable because Formula One requires that kind of resources to get there, and to get a seat is very, very hard. I mean, there are just 20 drivers. So yeah, we're wishing that Colapinto gets there. My father, for example, he's completely sure he's gonna get to Formula One. I'm not so sure, but I really hope that he can do that. And yeah, it's going back to the broadcasting. I feel like it's absolutely great that we have the races live and people can watch them. It's amazing.
I agree, and I think it's one of those things where it's such a simple step in theory to just have it live, make it free, have it accessible, because then you can watch as much of it or as little of it as you want, but you have that choice of going in and out, and it's the freedom to do that. And you can, as you say, from your side of things, you can experiment with the setup a little bit. You can try all these things out. You've got experienced people, you've got yourself who you're experienced, but in a different way, and you're learning as you go. And it's showing people in Argentina that you're taking in, let's say, Colapinto, that seriously you're having the infrastructure there just in case. And if not, if he doesn't get to Formula One, that's still okay, because you're still going to have a lot of Formula One fans that are interested, and you have everything there to show it off. And other kids might be seeing Colapinto, or they might be seeing you and thinking, oh, I want to do something in Formula One. I don't know what it is. They hear how you got there. You create more opportunities that way. Or the driving side of things, depending on how successful Colapinto is, and other drivers just from South America in general, maybe karting becomes a little bit less expensive and just more accessible, or something like this. And it's just that moving it in the right direction, because like you say, Argentina, not the best economy in the world, but you've got to take these small steps to try and combat that, because the alternative is, well, just doing nothing, and that doesn't help anything.
Yeah, totally. And I feel like we have the chance. We always can dream. I know it sounds very cheesy, but I was even
Well,
my
you
classmates
dreamed,
in
and look where you
university.
got to already. So,
Yeah, well, they used to tell me, my classmates in university, like, don't you like some other sport like tennis, like basket? And I do, I actually do. But they told me that, like, saying Formula One is very far away. Like, why don't you think about something else? And I feel like we all, at least in Argentina, I don't know, but in general, I feel like as well, we have this mentality of, if it is very far away, maybe let's just think about something else, because it's a lot of hard work. But I feel like if you don't put the hard work, you don't get to do big things. And I feel like in Argentina we have, yeah, that mentality that doesn't really help us to get far. Formula One is a category that is very, very beautiful in so many ways. And I loved the way, for example, I used to watch the Girls on Track UK webinars,
hmm.
where they talk with women in Formula One and how they got there. Um, I got to meet through virtually, of course, not in person, but with Rosanna Tennant, and
Hmm.
she was really like encouraging me to say, okay, but you're different because you're from Argentina, but that makes you don't think of that like as a disadvantage. You need to think about that as an advantage. I mean, Spanish besides English, like the categories that are run in your country, and you have the knowledge about Formula One. That doesn't make you any different. You're just in another point of the world, but you can travel anytime. Like, she uh, kind of changed my mind to think in a way that I didn't see what myself as a disadvantage with the rest of the people that were in the UK or in another country in Europe. Yeah, no, I was just like starting to see myself as something that wasn't a disadvantage, and I could really compete with the people that were from other countries, and actually just getting to understand that I could do my job in my language. Like, I do my videos on Instagram in Spanish, I do the broadcasting in Spanish, and we have a very, very big community in Latin America of people that loves Formula One, and that they watch Formula One in Spanish because that's the language they talk. So we gotta love that, and gotta understand that we have a very big community, and that we can get to Formula One, maybe not soon, at least in Argentina, but I'm pretty sure some other countries such as Colombia or Peru, well, even in Brazil, are gonna get more exposure, and they can, yeah, just grow and make Formula One grow. It'll come at some point because we have a very massive community of people here, and people are the ones that draw the money, that draw the resources of Formula One. So Formula One will have to come whether they want it or not, sometime here to Argentina, and hopefully to some other Latin American countries too. And we can have a very big calendar of races here in Argentina and in Latin America.
It's like you say, you've got these small steps going in the right direction. You've got the tools available to you. You've got drivers, not just an Argentinian in Colapinto, but then you've got, like I was saying, Montoya. You've got them in the feeder series. You've got Caceres in F1 Academy as well as the only Latin driver there. And
Yeah.
you've got a history of having drivers from South America as well. Obviously, you've got Senna, you've got Fangio, but then you've got Maldonado as like a wild card in there as well. Still weirdly the last driver to win a race for Williams, but that's a whole other mind-blowing fact for another time. And you've seen Extreme E in South America, you've seen Formula E in South America, in a few different countries as well in South America, and it's just it's how I kind of came up with the thought of wanting to talk more about this whole subject with people from there, because it seems weird that there is Brazil, and that's it for Formula One. It doesn't make a lot of sense. It's not as bad as ignoring Africa completely from the calendar, but it seems similar to it because there's such a rich history for Formula One there, with many different teams, many different countries. Drivers have come from there. There are new drivers coming up, and somehow, despite all the financial difficulties, like you were saying about earlier, they still manage to get to Europe. They still manage to get to America and get the opportunities, and then do it from there. So to not have that infrastructure there back home to at least show it to everyone, or have the option at least to show it to people live at the minimum, seems just mad to me. But I'm glad that there was someone there who was thinking the same thing and is actively doing something about that, and to good success so far.
Yeah, and it's just not just thinking about the resources that we need to have. It's also about the resources that Formula One brings to the country, because it really helps tourism with I don't know, everything that comes internationally. It also helps the country grow, because maybe some people really like it. I know a driver, Valtteri Bottas, you know, he comes to Argentina very often. He loves Mendoza. He loves the wine, the Argentinian wine. So maybe people that are from Europe or from America, they can come to Argentina and maybe like the country, and bring money to us. That's good for the government. Also thinking about the drives that you were mentioning, Fangio was, I think it is the best driver Formula One has ever had, because he won with any car, with any team. He managed
at one of
to
the
win
most difficult periods of the sport as well, to top it all off. So
yeah, I mean, you crashed back then, and it was death. I mean, there wasn't the halo thing. There wasn't, like, it was very, very dangerous, and they raced under conditions that were really different from now. The cars were really heavy. You had to have the skills, and that's why I feel like it's sad that we don't have Formula One in Argentina. I feel like Pancho would have liked to had a Grand Prix here. But well, it just comes with time. I feel like if we can grow in certain ways and cover some of the things that we need to get better in our finance and in our economy, I feel like then Formula One can be a priority and can be something that we can think about. We have MotoGP, and that is a circuit that is degree 2, so it's a very good circuit. So maybe if it's not in Buenos Aires, it can be in another province. I mean, there are a lot of options that can be held in mind, and that can really just be a thought for the future. I mean, maybe not now, but for the future, definitely.
Hopefully it'll be a similar story to like what we've seen with Williams over the past few years. You're there, you're working on it, you're trying, and we're slowly seeing some steps in the right direction. And hopefully you can have a Silverstone kind of result soon, and that'll help push you a bit further, and we'll just keep building on that.
Yeah, hopefully. Well, Williams is a great example. I mean, maybe you have a great period of time in Formula One, then you go off and get to the back of the grid. But there is a point where you gotta go up at least a little bit, and that I feel like is the history of Argentina in general. We usually go down, we go up. It's just like that. So when we go up again, because it will happen, we can definitely think about Formula One and other categories, just Formula E, Extreme to get here and get people to know this beautiful country that I feel like has the resources and has a really big crowd of fans that wants to meet Formula One in person, just like me, sometime in their lifetime. So yeah, hopefully it happens.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you. I feel like we could go on for hours and hours, and maybe we will do at some point, and that'll be a whole other podcast, maybe a whole series, depending on how long we talk for. So I want to thank you very much for your time, and wish you the best of luck with everything else for the rest of the F1 season and beyond.
Well, thank you so much for having me, for giving me this invitation. For me, it's a pleasure to be talking to you and having the time to express how important it is Formula One for all of us here in South America. So thank you so much.